The Inuit hunters of eastern Greenland are facing a serious and deeply concerning health crisis due to the accumulation of toxic forever chemicals in their diet. The very way of life that has sustained them for generations, hunting and consuming polar bears and seals, is now putting them at significant risk. Scientists have revealed that the levels of and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, in the blood of this community are 13 times higher than the recognized risk threshold, a shocking and dangerous figure that could have long-term consequences for their health. PFAS, known for their extreme persistence in the environment and the human body, are synthetic chemicals used in countless consumer and industrial products, from non-stick cookware to flame retardants. These chemicals are carried by air and sea currents from distant industrialized regions and accumulate in the Arctic food chain, ultimately reaching the Inuit population through their traditional diet. Once in the body, these compounds do not break down easily, meaning that their toxic effects will linger for decades, perhaps even a century, posing severe risks to future generations. The potential health consequences are alarming. Exposure to PFAS has been linked to cancer, thyroid and kidney disease, weakened immune response, and developmental issues. Infants born in these communities may already be at risk due to their mother's exposure, and the entire population could be suffering from a silent but devastating health crisis that will only worsen over time. This is not just a localized issue. It is a direct result of global industrial pollution infiltrating one of the most remote and vulnerable communities on the planet. Adding to the danger, the Inuit hunters also have dangerously high levels of mercury and polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs, in their bodies. These industrial pollutants, which have been banned in many countries for decades, continue to persist in the environment, binding to ocean sediments and making their way into the Arctic food chain. The effects are severe. PCBs damage the immune, nervous, and reproductive systems and are classified as probable human carcinogens. Mercury, another toxic element found in alarming concentrations in Arctic communities, can cause neurological damage, particularly in developing children. The environmental injustice here is staggering. The Inuit of eastern Greenland have contributed almost nothing to the production of these toxic substances, yet they bear the brunt of their devastating effects. Their isolation does not protect them. In fact, it makes them more vulnerable, as they rely heavily on local wildlife for sustenance. Scientists are now advising these communities to diversify their diet to reduce their exposure, but this is easier said than done. Many Inuit face food insecurity, and access to alternative food sources is limited and expensive. Expecting them to abandon their traditional diet without providing viable replacements is unrealistic and unjust. This crisis is not just about individual health. It is a direct attack on an entire way of life. The Inuit have thrived in harsh Arctic conditions for centuries, maintaining a deep connection to the land and sea. Now, the invisible threat of industrial pollution is putting their culture, traditions, and survival at risk. Without immediate action, they face an escalating public health disaster. Governments and regulatory bodies must take responsibility for reducing the production and spread of these toxic chemicals, enforcing stricter environmental protections, and supporting affected communities. The time to act is now, before the damage becomes irreversible.